Hello, Herr Otto here with the other Herr Otto. This is my brother Jonah. You've all met him at some point before, or well, those of you that aren't in German classes have probably not. But yes, this is my brother.
Hi.
If you do not know, if you could tell them where you live.
Yeah, so my name's Jonah.
Yes,
My
Jonah
name's
Otto.
Jonah, and
Here with Dan Otto, your German teacher.
in the great state of Indiana. I am from here like Dan, but I live in Augsburg, Germany. All the German students already know that from meeting me, but yeah.
Where is Augsburg?
Augsburg is about 30 minutes like northwest of Munich by the high-speed train.
And Munich is for the non-German students.
We're pretty south, pretty far south. Munich being the third largest city in Germany, and in a lot of ways, like the cultural center of what a lot of Americans know about Germany when they think about Germany. So thinking like Lederhosen, Dirndl, like polka music, mountains, this sort of thing. Yeah, so we're down by the Alps. Yeah.
So Munich is to Bavaria as Indianapolis is to Indiana.
Yeah.
Bavaria is to Germany as Indiana is to the United States.
Yeah.
More likely how Texas is to the United States.
Right, yeah. A lot of people, whenever they're comparing Bavaria to things in the U.S., to give people from the U.S. like a frame of reference, they'll say Texas because Bavaria is the biggest state geographically, but it's also kind of like the seat of, like, I don't know, a lot of things that are really like culturally significant in Germany, and so they have like a lot of pride in being like the home of that. Yeah.
And so one thing that I've been, we got another question. Good, thank you, Sam. We have been learning that these things that we think of as German stereotypes are actually Bavarian.
Usually, yeah. Not always, but usually, yeah.
Lederhosen, pretzel.
Sweet mustard. Like,
yeah. Dirndl. Well, bratwurst kind of comes from everywhere, but
they have their own specific kind.
But yeah, the Bavarian bratwurst is distinctive, and the specifically the white sausage Weisswurst is very Bavarian.
Yeah, yeah.
The cultural word used to, like, the German equivalent of the Mason-Dixon line is the white sausage equator. Yeah,
Weisswurst, yeah.
So anyway, we're here today specifically to talk about the Oktoberfest. So that's another thing that people very heavily associate with Germany, but is from Bavaria again. Right. So why don't you explain to us what the Oktoberfest is? Or maybe like you can kind of give us your like overall impressions of it, and then I can start asking you questions that the crew has submitted.
Okay, so I won't go into too much detail so that I don't step over your questions. Sure. So yeah, the Oktoberfest to local people is called the Wiesn, is the name of the festival, and the Wiesn is that name is a reference to the location in Munich where the Oktoberfest takes place, which is the Theresienwiese, and that's significant as well because Theresia, it was to celebrate her wedding, was the why. She was a princess of Bavaria, and celebrating her wedding is why the first Oktoberfest happened.
And that was in the 1800s?
Yeah, a while back. And
so this is not the oldest of German traditions, but
no,
it's pretty old.
It's older, but it's to the point now where it's so worldwide famous that over 6 million people visit the Oktoberfest over the course of it happening. Not all of those being from outside of Germany. A lot of them are coming from inside Germany as well, other places in the EU, but literally people from all over the world come to this 3-week festival here in the fall. So it starts as this celebration of a royal wedding and a party that just kind of lasted forever, it felt like. And then it became the tradition, and it's also a way of celebrating the harvest, as a lot of the folk fest, like the local festivals in Germany, are.
Was the original celebration of the Oktoberfest, or was the original wedding celebration a 3-week-long affair?
Might have even been longer honestly. Yeah, 3 weeks might be pared down. Yeah.
It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, it's aggressive.
Can you imagine having a wedding and it taking 3 weeks to get done celebrating your wedding?
I went to a wedding last night, and 1 day was enough. Like, I'm good. Yeah.
We had a really great time, but I can't imagine 3 weeks of it.
Nope, too long.
Anyway, um, so yeah, those are the origins. How many times have you been?
I've been well since it lasts 3 weeks every year. You typically would go more than once, especially if you live close, because there's a lot to do. It's not just the big tents where you have all of the food and
That's
the
one of the
music.
questions.
Okay, yeah. So then I'll get more into that. But yeah, I guess typically you could go more than once. And you could do different things when you go. You don't have to do the same thing.
Let's back up a little bit. How
Yeah.
long have you lived there?
Since like March 2018.
Yeah.
So I've basically been at least once per year in pre-COVID years.
So yeah, at the recording of this video, you've been living there for 3.5, a little bit more than 3.5 years.
Right.
3 years, 1/2, and 1 month. I
Yeah,
guess we
and
could
over
say.
a year and a half of that has been during the pandemic. So
Yeah.
I went
So
in
you went-
2018 and I went in 2019 and then yeah.
Had you gone any times before you moved there?
No.
Okay.
No.
I didn't know whether you had made it over there at any point, like while you were in France or Belgium, or any previous time you spent like in Poland or anything like that.
No, I'd been through trips for work. I had been to Germany before, but it was never during the festival season.
Okay.
I'd been during Christmas markets and other stuff. We can do another video for Christmas markets later.
Absolutely.
But yeah, the first time was after I moved.
So 2018, 2019, and then
Yeah,
nothing.
real sad. Like it's like a day of national mourning whenever they cancel it because it's not feasible to do something like that.
And we get it, but like it sucks.
Everybody gets it, but it sucks.
Yeah. Okay. Questions. So, we've got some really strong questions to start on. So, are you ready for this?
I'm so ready.
What was the largest amount of sausage that you've eaten in one sitting at Oktoberfest? This question is from Izzy.
Okay.
Thank you, Izzy.
Okay, Izzy, you're gonna just out me like this right at the beginning. So,
I'm not sure you're ready for the follow-up question, but let's get this one.
all right, the more than one meal's worth. So, I've had. There's been times where I'm walking around throughout, and so you can either eat inside in the tents whenever you have a reservation for a table with your group, or you could just be walking around and going to like different food booths. And the first time I went to the Oktoberfest, I just was like making loops and trying something new. I probably had like 4 or 5 different main course options over the course of a few hours.
Were they different kinds of sausage?
Yeah, mostly, and a lot of them in Dezemo, like so in a roll.
So the
Brötchen.
yeah, good. So he said the normal word for bread roll, which is Brötchen, or a small bread,
No, baby bread.
and then the Bavarian word for the roll is
Zemo.
Zemme. Good. So
Getting a lot of
kinds
different sausage in the roll. Because then, like as you're
Yes.
walking around,
Buy me Coke.
as you're walking around, it was a lot easier to do that if you also wanted to put ketchup and mustard on it, like so you're not, having to screw with the fork and knife.
slathering your hands
Right,
in
right.
mustard and mayonnaise and whatever.
Yeah, exactly. It's just a lot easier to just have the roll.
Okay. The follow-up question, also from Izzy, is: have you ever won a sausage eating competition?
That day, I guess I won against myself.
There you go.
But no, I've never actively competed. So moving away from sausage specifically, one of the other really popular items there is a grill handle. So like a grilled like roasted chicken, like rotisserie.
That's so good.
And so when you go into like some of the tents, because each tent is servicing so many people, there will just be a wall of rotisseries in the kitchen where they're cooking chickens, and you get a half chicken comes with like your reservation ticket.
Amazing.
So you get half the chicken, a side, and then
For that specific tent,
and then a beer with that ticket and that specific tent.
right?
But the chicken is like seasoned really really well. It was fantastic. Really
Yeah.
hit the spot.
So that's another dialect word. So what is the normal word for a chicken?
Händchen.
Hähnchen, yeah. And so the Bavarian and Austrian word for that is Händel. Yeah. Hendl. They really like their terminal L's and RL's on
with like an
words.
apostrophe at the end.
Well, that's the Bavarian equivalent of Hien or Lein.
Yep.
Yeah, to diminutize a word. So
Mm-hmm.
now we're learning a little bit of German grammar. I'm going to quit that real quick, so we can focus on Oktoberfest. So Raymond asks, where does Oktoberfest come from? So I think we answered that.
Yeah.
Um,
And then obviously it was traditionally held in October, so that's where the name comes,
oh yeah,
particularly.
yeah,
Which is, yeah, so a festival that was started to celebrate a wedding is not named after the wedding, but was instead named after the time of year where it happened.
pretty amazing.
Yeah. And I think I saw one of the other questions was about like the weather. And that kind of fits where we're talking now.
Yeah,
Because a big misnomer is most people think that the Oktoberfest primarily happens in October, whereas in reality, 2 of the 3 weeks happen in September and only the last week's in October. Historically, it was completely in October, and thus the name. But then they ended up, the weather that close to the Alps gets colder a little bit earlier.
yeah,
And so, for weather reasons, just because you had a better chance of getting better weather earlier, they shifted it forward 2 weeks so that you could have 2 weeks in September.
yeah.
So, yeah.
The weather in Germany, Austria in September is so nice.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
October it starts to get pretty bad.
It's cold. It
Yeah.
gets really crisp outside. It's not necessarily like wet or gray. It's just it gets
just
cold.
cold,
Yeah.
like the alpine climate there. And he said why October specifically. I think just because that's when the
Wedding
wedding happened.
So the wedding happened, and then that was the festival that took place, and it was such a big hit, and obviously all the breweries made so much money that everybody was kind of cool with it to keep having it.
Yeah. Lila asks, what is the average age of people that attend Oktoberfest?
Oh, I mean that's basically the average age of the population.
Yeah.
Because it's
Well, I mean, it would have to skew a little bit older because mostly people under. Well, again, this is another question I think people had, like what can kids and teens do?
That's the thing. It's set up to be. So if any of you've ever been to like the big like Vanderburgh County Fair or the Indiana State Fair,
Fall Fest,
there's that element of it too. So you have like the big tents where the music's happening, and don't get me wrong, that's the main attraction. But built around these, like, there's a couple banks of tents. There's a road that goes all the way around to everything, and that's lined with carnival rides, carnival games.
Well, there you go.
All sorts of like booths, like little like things where you can buy crafts, you name it.
There's something for everyone.
There's
to do.
literally something for everybody. And there's even a tourist attraction that's in the Oktoberfest, the Bavarian statue. Do you know what I'm talking about? It's huge,
yes.
and it's like the lady. Yeah,
Yeah.
she's like their Lady Liberty, kind of.
Right.
But yeah, symbolizes the stage. You got the two big lions.
I know I've seen
You know what
it,
I'm
but,
talking
like,
about.
I can't picture it.
In the German club meeting, like Google that.
Yeah, we'll do that.
But yeah, so like that's there year round. But yeah, there's really something for everybody to do there. So I would honestly say,
Whatever the average
like
age of
the
Germany
average,
is, like 35, 36.
like the average age during the day. Now, obviously, at a certain time of night, they'll run the carnival stuff most of the night, but then like a little bit later, it's mostly just the tents. But
What time do they close? Dawn.
No. It closes a little bit earlier because they open early.
Oh.
They close early enough for you to be able to catch the last train. So I want to say it was like you had to be getting off the premises around 1.
Okay, so
Yeah,
fairly early.
for like nightlife standards, fairly early.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Judging from past experiences that I know that we've both had. Okay. Lila also asks, what is the bathroom situation like?
It's actually a really astute question.
I love that.
Because a lot of people don't ask until it's too late.
Oh, yeah. No, you got to figure out before. That's one thing about German culture is you have to plan ahead.
Yeah, know what you're doing.
Everything is planned ahead.
So in the big tents, so the thing that's interesting about the tents, if you've never been in one, is that in a way they're semi-permanent structures. So each tent is set up to hold a few thousand people.
Oh, yeah.
And that means that like the construction of this thing inside, like the floors are wood, the benches are all wood. There's like temporary walls made of like wood and everything. There's full kitchens inside the tents with full equipment, which also means there's full bathrooms too. So when you're in the tent, you have a reservation. Going to the restroom is not really an issue. Maybe you have to wait a little bit because there's so many people. But Then the tricky part is like if you're wearing the traditional clothes, you got to maneuver your way out of that to go to the bathroom. That's kind of funny.
Yeah.
But
They were not designed to enable.
yeah, it's not simple. But
Yeah.
but no, and then if you're walking around the festival just in general, so like to get in, you go through like a little security checkpoint to get into the general festival grounds, and then you can kind of walk around freely. And there's a lot of different places set up to go to the bathroom.
Sweet.
Yeah.
So I have a follow-up question. Do you know like the square meterage or square footage of these tents, like offhand,
Like
or like if you were to estimate?
almost a football field.
Okay, so gigantic,
Like
like an American football field or like
I'd say
a
like
soccer pitch.
they're not all the same size, so a little bit, probably like a little bit not as wide as a soccer field and not as long as a football field, but like relative, like this is relatively how big we're talking.
So just
These are big things, yeah. So I'd say you're probably looking at something that's like somewhere between 50 and 70 yards long, and then another like 30 yards wide.
Yeah.
Something like this.
Okay. Sam asks, "What do I drink if I'm not yet 16?"
What options galore. Any of like
Kinderpunsch.
Apfelschorle.
Oh yeah.
Super popular.
Almdudler.
Yeah. A lot of different.
Maybe we should explain what these are. So Kinderpunsch.
Yeah, Kinderpunsch is basically like a virgin kid cocktail.
Yeah,
so like a non-alcoholic cocktail.
Like a Shirley Temple, but better.
Right.
Yeah, like a fruit punch, like a mixed fruit punch with like real fruit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Apfelschorle is apple juice
and mineral water.
Apple juice and sparkling water,
Yeah.
in a mix. So then you have kind of like a fizzy apple drink.
And Almdudler is kind of like that too.
Yeah.
What else do people like? Mezzomix or
yeah.
Schwab?
You'll get a lot of people drink. So our areas, we're Spetzi people down south.
So those are all three different kinds of the same like orange cola.
Yeah, it's a Fanta and cola mix.
Yeah, it's so good. It's way better than it sounds. Like it sounds terrible.
It's actually really nice.
I love it.
But Spetzi is the regional kind of like dominant brand.
Yeah, I think the Austrian one is Mezzomix, and then I got a Schwab when I was in Munich.
You can get all of those around, but the one you're going to see constantly is.
It's kind of like the battle between Dr. Pepper and Mr. Pibb, like you know,
where there's also clear
Coke versus Pepsi. Yeah.
But
is Pepsi okay?
But
is Schwab okay? No.
I'm leaving.
Night.
I'm leaving. I'm going to a different Oktoberfest.
I'm gonna leave and start my own Oktoberfest.
Can't compete.
Yeah. Free market, baby. Join the FDP.
But no, plenty of things to drink other than alcohol. No question.
Are people allowed to drink at the Oktoberfest when they're 16?
I think so.
I would imagine so. Because I didn't know if the Oktoberfest counted as a pub or a bar or a club.
I'd be very surprised if they didn't make it like
some kind of exception.
Yeah.
Cool. Because I mean, they all know that like Germans can officially like drink in public when they're 16. So, what kind of music? This is from Sona. What kind of music are people listening to during Oktoberfest?
So the tents open at roughly like 10 or so, and then the band will start playing around 11, and it'll be a traditional Bavarian brass band.
Blasmusik.
Blasmusik. So they're going to be playing a lot of traditional like Alpine area music and classic songs that have been popular in the local culture since the 1800s. That's how everything will start, and then there'll be like people will be doing lunch service and kind of getting like the first like rounds of things, and then as the day progresses, they'll start moving into like more contemporary music whenever it moves a little bit more away from being like a restaurant atmosphere and moving more towards like nightlife atmosphere. Then they'll start playing newer Schlager and things like that.
Still with the brass bands, or like are they getting different bands in?
Like
that would be so cool.
So I've seen it done different ways. I've seen where they've literally just swapped the instruments and the band was the same.
Oh, cool.
Um,
Multi-talented folks.
but I've seen some where it's like that brass band, like they play there, and then maybe they go to another tent where their offer of the night is to continue that music. So like, and also like by the tent, you can kind of have a little bit of a say in what music you're going to get.
Yeah.
Because you know what is going to be on at that tent before you go. So, yeah. But I mean, once you get like later into the night, they start playing all these other, like for whatever reason, Country Roads by John Denver is super popular in Germany, and so they'll play stuff like that.
Summer of '69.
Yeah, once it gets later, but the first several hours are
Don't
the traditional.
Stop Believin'.
Yeah,
Like just those typical songs that people also like here, also over there. Okay, Sona also asked what kind of activities are there to do during Oktoberfest. So is there anything that we haven't mentioned, like competitions or other traditions, like other things to do? So rides and carnival, buying things. Like
they have like the carnival games, or people are like swinging the mallet and stuff like you literally see at the state fair. But
what kind of things do people buy? So that maybe is something that we haven't talked about. Like stereotypical things that people would buy as like a souvenir from the Oktoberfest. Mugs.
Definitely the mugs and Steinkruge and.
Do they sell like Lederhosen and Dirndl around?
They do, but you're gonna get gouged. Like no one would.
You're gonna want to buy that beforehand.
Yeah, you go to a specialty shop before you get something of higher quality at a lower price.
There are straight up shops where all they sell is Dirndl and Lederhosen. I know where one is in Salzburg, like right off the bat.
Yeah.
So Sona and Nick, your project about starting up a Dirndl and Lederhosen shop totally exists. You could do it.
Yeah. Yeah. That would not be like a weird business model whatsoever. Like if you walked into a bank and were like, I want a loan to start a Dirndl, they're like, yeah, you were the fifth person this week.
Call 1-800-EINKAUFEN.
Einkaufen.
So good. So buying stuff, gingerbread hearts.
Yeah, so the
Lebkuchenherzen.
Yeah, a lot of people will buy those with no intention of eating them.
Yeah, just to have.
And some people will use them. Christmas ornaments are also really popular just because you're getting ready for the Christmas season. So you can buy like handcrafted Christmas ornaments. A lot of just handcrafted things in general are around. And so, yeah. And then obviously because there's such a large international influx of people, you'll also see like the type of like tourist trinkets that you would see at like Oktoberfest magnets and tea towels and stuff like that. T-shirts,
funny shirts. Yeah, I went to Oktoberfest and all I got was this lousy T-shirt.
Yeah, like you could buy like T-shirts that have like the lederhosen straps coming over, so it's like kind of like a tuxedo T-shirt but lederhosen. Yeah, that exists.
I might have to have one.
Knock yourself out.
Probably not though. I'm just kidding. Nick asks, is it like in a building or do they just close down the streets? So the tents, and maybe we should talk about what Wiesen means, like
meadow. The
meadow, yeah.
So this
Bavarian word for a meadow. At
the time that the Oktoberfest started, the Theresienwiese, where this is, the area of town where the Oktoberfest is, would have been like on the outskirts of Munich. Now, obviously, Munich's completely grown around it. But what you essentially have is a really large plot of green space that when the Oktoberfest is not happening is just like open green space. But the roads that are in the area, those are then like, so people come out there and do like rollerblading, skateboarding, bike track. And like, so it's basically used as a public park when the Oktoberfest isn't happening. But because of the scale of the tents, so whenever the Oktoberfest isn't happening, it's just this big open area in the middle of town. But because of the scale of everything, they have to be building for like 2 months before it even starts. So there's about 3 months of the year where it's not publicly accessible without coming in through like the security or being a part of like the construction staff.
Yeah. How many tents are there, roughly?
10 to 12.
So 10 to 12 big tents, and like you
Ish.
said, not all of
And
them
there's
are as big as a
There's a couple of
football
small
field,
ones too.
but most of them are probably going to be about that size, right?
Yeah, and then you also like different tents get like different reputations over the time. So it's kind of like if you were to go,
If you want the best sausage, you go to this one.
or
you
like
want the
if
best-
this is the one where like all the young people go. This is the one where they're going to play the most traditional music. Like, this
Gotcha.
one like specializes in this serving, and all of the tents are owned by private families, and they don't give out new licenses for new tents. So the only way for you to get a license would be if you like have some kind of wait list to take over from this family that's had the license for a tent for over 100 years.
Yeah.
And then they sign licensing agreements with local breweries to be the beer server at that tent. So if you also have a preference of like beverage, maybe you pick one tent based on that over another.
Nick asked a follow-up question. Is there one main Oktoberfest or a lot of little ones everywhere?
So Oktoberfest,
So normally,
normally Oktoberfest is there is the only one Oktoberfest. Now, if you're asking more general about Folkfested, like those are little ones, and almost every town has one.
Well,
Where
I
I
do
live,
know-
Augsburg has one. But like a lot of times, especially if they're closer to Munich, they're not going to try to compete. They're not going to be running at the same time. So, like the Augsburg Festival is in August, for example.
oh,
August. Augsburg's is also twice a year. There's one in the spring and one in the fall, and they're shorter. It's the Augsburg's is 2 weeks, so two-week festivals, one in the spring, one in the fall. But every little area that has more than like a couple hundred people is going to have something like a smaller version of the Oktoberfest.
I do know that in
But they're not knockoffs. That's important to point
Right.
out. They're not knockoffs. Like Oktoberfest, like Folkfest have been happening in Bavaria, in Germany for hundreds of years. Oktoberfest is just one of them.
Do you know if any of the Volksfest have like the Oktoberfest name?
No.
Well, and I'm not trying to show you up. I'm just saying that like one of the students that I've had do a project like found, because we were doing Northern Germany at the time for German 3, they found that there was one in Hanover called Oktoberfest.
That's a northern problem.
I agree. I was like, this is not the real Oktoberfest.
I
Like
guarantee
this is a poor imitation. But like I think it's just their Volksfest, and they have it in October, and they call it Oktoberfest.
Fair
but
enough.
It was like, man, Hanover, that's a bad look.
Well, yeah, because if you ever tell anyone like you're going to a Oktoberfest, and
They're not going to assume.
they're not going to think you're
Hanover.
going to Hanover. No, not even close.
It's just that they kept trying to locate Northern German festivals and traditions, and they kept coming up with Oktoberfest. And I said, Oktoberfest is not in Northern Germany. They're like, but Herr Otto, this one is. I'm like, oh okay, I was wrong. I guess I was.
I would
Dead
argue.
wrong.
I would argue Hanover's wrong. But
Hanover could be wrong.
I see the point that they have one named that, but it shouldn't be named that.
Yeah,
Like,
no, they should reconsider. Okay. In modern days, for COVID reasons, I know that last year they had several. Hi, Dennis. They had several teeny tiny like bar-based Oktoberfests.
yes.
Correct.
Yeah.
Are they doing the same thing this year? Maybe.
Yep.
Yeah. Or
Yeah.
did they? I think. It's
Yeah,
over.
they did.
Yeah.
It was more of like, for capacity reasons, you could get your own, like, you and a group of people up to a certain number could get your own table, like specific table distance from the other tables, where you were like kind of, but you're still all in the same room with a band, and so you have the atmosphere without the risk.
Sam asks, what other foods do they eat besides beer and bratwurst?
The chicken's a big
Chicken,
one.
pretzels.
Yeah,
Baked pretzels. And
there will be people walking around just like holding up a pretzel. They've got like a waist, like kind of like a hot dog vendor moving through a baseball stadium, having like
pretzels, get your pretzels.
and they always have two sizes: the giant and the like Annie Ann size, and then
the big ones.
the big ones.
For multiple folks.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else? Sauerkraut, I suppose.
Yeah, all of the traditional sides like sauerkraut,
sauerkraut,
blaukraut.
Spätzle,
Mm-hmm.
Kartoffelsalat,
Kartoffelsalat, that's a given.
potato salad.
Yeah, you'd always
Not just a Midwest thing.
No, theirs is different though.
Yeah, it's a little. It's what more vinegar based.
It's vinegar based.
Yeah, rather than
mayonnaise.
mayonnaise.
The Midwestern, half mayonnaise, half potato.
Abomination of a salad.
Not good.
Izzy asks, "What Oktoberfest tradition is your favorite?"
It's got to be standing on the benches and singing. So after you kind of get through eating and like first little bit, maybe you have like something for dessert, Kaiserschmarrn or something like this.
Oh yeah. Shredded pancakes with powdered sugar and applesauce and raisins.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
sounds weird. Try it.
So good.
Super good.
Emperor's nonsense.
But so once the festival moves past a certain point, and the band is starting to play at a higher frequency and starting to play like more and more of the brass music, then everyone gets up and stands on the benches. You can't stand on the table. You get kicked out for standing on the table.
No.
I've seen that before. You can't stand on the table, but everyone stands on the benches and kind of like arms around each other, meeting new people at this point.
This is what we call Gemütlichkeit.
And the coziness. But they and then you're singing along with the band, and Ein Prosit is probably like
Ein Prosit.
I'm not going to say with you.
Ein Prosit der Gemütlichkeit. Ein Prosit der Gemütlichkeit. Ein Prosit.
It's hoch.
Eins, zwei, super. Yeah.
Basically, what they're doing to like encourage people to clean glasses and have a little bit extra.
Correct. My personal favorite is the opening of the Oktoberfest when the mayor of Munich has to come out and tap the first keg.
I've never been there for that.
It's I've only ever seen it on like
it's
YouTube,
funny,
but like you get this like ancient dude come out to like try to hammer in a tap, and like sometimes it's a disaster, but like he'll like tap the keg, and then he has to try to shout like as loud as he can, "Oh, tap this!" Like I've tapped the keg.
It's like the equivalent of seeing a really unathletic politician throw out a first pitch.
Like, oh man, God bless him, Dr. Fauci trying to throw out the first pitch, or no, the first time Obama tried to throw out the first pitch, it was just really bad. But yeah, so it's that kind of thing that makes Bavaria so special. Are there notably special games that they do every year? Asks Sam.
Now, not that I know of at the Oktoberfest, but I could definitely see in the smaller folk festival, like in the rest of the area, I would not be surprised at all if there was some kind of like shooting competition or gaming thing that was happening with it.
Yeah. The May Day celebrations in Salzburg involve like, and this is again not Oktoberfest, but like just in the talk about general traditions and whatnot. In Salzburg, climbing the maypole to try to like get the pretzel that they have hanging at the top of the maypole is a big one. Raymond asks, how long does Oktoberfest usually last? 3 weeks.
3 weeks on the dot. Yep.
Sam, what's the weather usually like during Oktoberfest?
First couple weeks,
nice.
You'd say like nice, but
maybe rain.
At night you're gonna want like an extra layer, like a sweater or something, and then once you start getting in October, it's a little chilly.
Yeah.
But for the most part, the traditional clothes you would wear for the Oktoberfest are a little bit warmer anyway. So.
Yes. Does everyone wear lederhosen and dirndl?
98%.
Yeah, most.
Yep.
Sam, are there any notable figures or mascots like they have Krampus for Christmas? I love that.
It'd be funny if there was like an Olympics mascot for
like an anthropomorphic pretzel or something, like dancing around with his pal Billy Bratwurst.
To answer the question, no, I don't think so. I I don't think there's a mascot.
Izzy asks, does Oktoberfest only really happen in one area, or are there multiple area where it takes place? I think we might have answered that already.
Yeah, it's kind of like Oktoberfest is a folk fest, but not every folk fest is an Oktoberfest.
Okay. Sam asks, who organizes the celebrations?
Huge effort
Yeah.
between like the city of Munich,
those families.
the city of Munich, the families that own and sponsor the tents, the breweries
Bands.
that supply all of like the local farms that supply the food, the bands,
sausages.
It's a huge undertaking. I'm sure there's a special events department within the Munich city government that does a lot of the organization for it. It's a year-round effort.
I'd be interested to know, one, how much it costs to organize, two, how much money the state subsidizes, and then three, how much they make like on ticket sales.
Insane. That
Billions.
You're looking around.
Euros.
Like I remember walking around and just think, because I used to work at Rafferty's here in Evansville when I was in college, and so I had some experience in restaurants. And I'm aware of like how much they can make when they're well run, and you're just looking at kind of it's a well-oiled machine, and you're just like, they're printing money here. It's unreal to think how much money they make in those 3 weeks. I've talked to some of the servers. So the servers come in like independent contractors for the tents, and there's a lot of servers that will make 3 to 4 months worth of their money for the year in this 3 weeks, but they're working to the bone, like working 12-hour shifts, but just from tips and their hourly wage, banking.
Pretty great.
Yeah.
I have to note that we've got like 45 minutes for club, so we'll try to wrap this up.
Okay. And we've got to go soon.
And we also have to go. Izzy's follow-up question to Sam's question about who organizes, they ask, is it a secret society? Izzy's had a lot of really great questions today.
Yeah, the Knights Templar hosted the first Oktoberfest. And now it's just like Merkel and her cronies.
Yeah.
So
this has all obviously been a joke.
But for real, it's her.
Lila asks, are children allowed? What would they do? I think we answered that one. Raymond asks, how has Oktoberfest changed over time?
So this I've actually heard. This is a great question. A lot of people have complained that it's become too commercial. That they need to, that you basically have like your old people screaming at clouds that like they need to keep it like more traditional, and I don't know, like it put like capacity limits, or like do a better job of cutting people off when they like some good points, like like where it's like there are times where it's like it's become too sloppy,
because even though transportation is really good, like public transportation, so like intoxicated driving is maybe not so much of a problem, but
when you're
alcohol poisoning,
you're leaving and you're seeing people that have had way too much, and so there are fair criticisms to be said, but for the most part, I think the way that it's changed is it's just become much more modernized and commercialized.
Good. Sam asks, to what extent do people below 16 play a role in Oktoberfest? Like, do they participate significantly less than people of age? I think it's just different participation.
It's just inside and outside the tent.
Yeah.
And even then, like you see plenty of there's like family sections of the tent where it's easier to go in and sit down if you just want to have a meal with you and your family. But I would say like for the most part, usually 16 and up inside the tents, and then everyone that's got kids they're out doing stuff in the fairgrounds.
Last question that we have is from Lila. Do they have high quality beer, or is it, and that was in quotation marks, or is it cheap and kind of crappy stuff?
Excellent quality.
Yeah, I mean it's all prepared according to the
Bavarian purity laws.
Yeah, the Reinheitsgebot.
So not only is it like high quality beer, but they're also making particular beer for the Oktoberfest that you can only get at the Oktoberfest.
Like a particular style of...
It's like a Wiesenbier. So it's a little bit stronger, which also means you have to be a lot more careful.
Served in
a 1 liter Mass Krug.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, in terms of
sizes available,
you can order a Halbig, but everyone would be suspect. The easiest way, if you don't want a whole beer, is to order a Schnitt, which is half beer, and then they fill the rest of the half up with foam. So they just make the head thicker. And so if you don't want a full beer, like that's the easiest way to do it, and then that's also cheaper than the full beer.
Cool.
But yeah, no, the quality's really good. Yeah.
I'm going to explain a dialect word that you just used. So a halbe is a half liter, and then a Zeidel is a third liter.
33.
Yeah. So yeah, you've got Zeidel, halbe, Maß, 1 liter. Now, if you order a Maß from a pub, like they'll know like this guy does not mess around.
It's really funny, like, because there's usually no reason to do it at a bar, because like, you don't get a price break for ordering like a larger quantity. It's just double the price of the half, and then your drink gets warm because there's no way you're drinking it that fast. You could have just ordered 2 halves.
Yeah. But anyway, lots of great questions. Thank you all for your participation. Thank you to Herr J for being willing to answer our questions. And
for the 3rd years, I will answer your questions eventually. Danny, they'll send them to me. I've just been busy. Sorry.
Yeah.
I will answer them though.
Professional lives.
Yeah.
So, Wiedersehen.
Hä?
Wiederschauen.
Tschüss.